Welcome back, everyone. We'll start as of now. So I would like to ask everyone whether everyone have been able to download the Python program and able to do the quiz as well, right? If anyone have any issues, you can mail us in our website FAQ forum that will be updated. Okay? And we have got, let me share the screen as well. Yeah, hope everyone can see the screen. Okay, so hope everyone can see the screen as well. Okay, so just I would like to quickly cross over the questions because some students have asked they have made several inquiries on the answers for the quizzes, right? So we'll just quickly discuss the questions. I mean, question and answer, and also it would be easy for us. I mean, helpful for us if you have done this student ID properly, because we are tracing all the students' username, user ID based on this, right? So it would be like first three digits of this should be your the name, surnames, first three letters. For example, if your name is Peter, it just do PET on capital, and rest of the four digits are your year, and then the other two are from month, other three are from month, and other two are from the date. Okay. Um, so if you have made this one, it will be easy for us to trace you in case if you to get back to the quizzes whether you have attended the lecture session or not, right? So it will be easy. Otherwise we have to trace back to email addresses. So if you have not given the email addresses properly here, then you might not receive the question. So we are sending the questions, the answers for the each practice questions then and there, right, for the practice quizzes. The final quiz, we will be giving the answers later, right? But as of now, we are giving the answers practice quiz then and there. So definitely, as soon as you answer, you must receive an email with your student ID. Okay. Then checking the responses back. So quickly discuss the questions. So which statement is true, right? So in these kind of multiple choice quizzes, we are covering some basic stuffs which sometimes we don't have much of time to cover everything. So some of the basic quizzes we are covering based on the MCQs and additional learning materials. So here the C Python is an implementation of Python. So the other two answers are wrong because Python code, it has a separate way of compiling compared to other programs like C or Java. And it's a dynamic language, so it is not dynamic language is a wrong answer. Then by programming, Python is a programming language. So development environment or editing tools, there are the examples. At the same time, question 3, even though some of the students have answered and even they have contacted us whether this is correct or whether they have either we have two answers here, but if you focus properly, there will be a colon after this closing bracket, right? Which this colon is not necessary. So majority of the students have answered it properly, but some of you have missed this colon, right? The extra tabs and extra colon or comma makes a lot of difference in Python programming. So that you have to be careful with this, right? So this is why we always strongly recommend using what they call the usual Python IDE, right? Instead of any other complex Python IDE. Why? Because you might miss these things later on, because automatically this will have been done for you, right? So instead of that, if you use the general one, you might understand that this colon is not necessary here. And the question for fourth is 48. Why? Because all of these are integers and you won't get a string or float or any other method. And question 5 is also 32.0. Why? Because when you divide, and it will be always a float number. So 32 is correct, but 32.0 is the actual answer in Python, right? Because if you divide 128 by 4, it is 32, but in Python output, it will be shown as 32.0, not 32, because it's always a float number. Then what is the output data type for 3 plus 6.0 into plus 1? It's always a float, right? So the question is about output data type, so which is a float data type, right? If you get the answer, it will be 10.0. Then question 7, if the output is 5, what is the most appropriate code which could be executed? So the most best answer is 21 double slash 4. Why? Because the remainder is 5. Okay, so sorry, the remainder is 1, but the whole number is 5. Okay, and here if you divide by 15, percentage sign 5, because it's 0, right? No remainder, right? So that's the operator numbers which you have to be uh, careful on this. Then which of the valid variable name in Python? Here hyphen in between letters is not a valid variable name, and a variable name, a space also, which is not a valuable valid name, right? So you cannot have spaces in between variable name or a hyphen in variable name, right? Underscore is fine. And then 9, there are many students have again asked us through our Instagram and Facebook pages whether these are correct, right? But these are true and false, both look same, right? The spellings, right? If you just look at the spellings, yes, but there is a capital true T, capital F for false, right? In the programming, if you use simple, it won't work, right? So that's the difference here. Then what is the output code for 7 exclamation mark and equal sign here, right? Which means it is not true, right? So 7 is not 8. Yes, that is true. So output would be true. So you can copy this code and paste it in your Python IDE and get the answers for this. Okay. And at the same time, 81 two asterisks, which means it's 81 to the power of half. Okay. So 81 to the power of half, right, is 9.0, right? So this is the correct answer here, right? Why? Because it's a power of half. Okay, which means instead of power of 2, you can use any number here in this area. And output of this code, based on this code, you have given this name as x, right? So add x multiplied by 3, yeah, x multiplied by 3 into, so that makes the second answer correct. Sorry, yeah, second answer correct, right? Not spam, right? Because spam is the variable name and x is the input. Okay, oops, getting so many, yeah. And the 15th, sorry, 14th question, right? That is also, it's similar to uh, responses, so it is not a floater number, it's a general number. And the 15 answer for the 15 is a first. I'm continuously getting messages, so that's right. So 15 answer is correct. The third one is correct because after command there is a hash and comment that won't be executed. But in the first statement, this hash yeah, first statement, the beginning of the first statement, there is a number sign, and that makes the print command invalid, so it won't be printed. And the second statement is wrong, third is correct, and fourth is also wrong. Okay. So hope I have explained the quizzes briefly. Let me see this. Okay, so there are questions. We retake the quizzes and how many times you can retake. So yeah, you can questions will be there in our website even until the end of the program. So you can retake the questions. It won't be a problem, but make sure that you use the correct metric student ID uh, every time you use it. Okay. Then coming back to our session today. The here, trouble here is being hosted. Give me a second. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay, my mic was muted. Okay, so I was briefing about today's program. So in today's one program, we have to be starting data mining. And before data mining, we need to have a very brief on Python, basic Python programming. So which is like list operations and how the list operation works, as well as basic input in Python, how to take the input and the conditional clauses, if else command, and some loops like while loop, for loops, and range operations, and creating a list through range, and how to reuse the code, and how to use functions in Python, right? So defining how to define the function and how to reuse the functions, right, which is very necessary when it comes to a continuous usage of codes. Okay, so here and we will be having from next week onwards, instead of one regular classes, there will be additional YouTube recorded sessions, and you might have to go back to the recorded session on your convenient time, and watch the recorded session, as well as you can answer the practice questions as your convenient, and that will makes the program more flexible, and it will be easier for us to learn a lot of things, because some of the uh, particular sections cannot be covered in 2 hours, which makes us really which makes some students really hard to catch it up. Okay, so here what we are going to do is we will be taking a list, right? So let's see what is a list, right? So for example, what we are going to do is we will be using a list. So here, this is the basic Python shell, but we are going to use. Okay, so in this one, we have added a name squares. You can type any name here, squares equivalent to 1, 4, 6, 16, 25. Okay, so let's say once we add the create a list. So this is, we have created a variable, right, and assigned the values as a list. Instead of assigning a single value, we have assigned multiple values here, right? And you can, once you recall the variable name, automatically this will be printed, right? So this is the basic idea of this, right? And at the same time, like last time, we have brought the some of the values, right? You can use the indexing, right, using square brackets 0, right? So by using this, right, you can automatically get the indexing here, and you can retake the values here, right? So which is, this is the 0th index. So 0th index means the first position, which is 1, right? At the same time, if you are going to use third index here, you will get the 16, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So at the third position is number 16 here. Okay, so the square values 1 and 2 to the power 2 and 3 to the power 2, so it goes on. Okay, so it's a continuous series here, right? So indexing in this, at the same time, instead of using the normal usual index, right, we can like minus index as well, right? So if the list number is really large, right, you can catch it from the back as well, right? It's similar to the functions what we have done last time. Okay, you can give a minus values, right? Instead of taking a string function, it's a list function, we call it. Like imagine if it is for 4 or 5 numbers, it's easy for us to get it. But if you have a really large numbers, like around 10,000 rows, or then it will be 10,000 values in a continuous sections, it will be the minus values would be handy. At the same time, right, if you want to slice the values, right, for example, slicing a values would be, you can slice it up to here, right? You can slice it from the front as well. Okay, so from here you can slice it and take it from the third value onwards, which is 16, 25, and it goes on. Or otherwise from the back you can slice it up to this value, right, if you want to slice it, right? So the minus means here from the uh, last is starting from the last, and if it is a positive number, we don't have to add the positive number, and it slice it from the beginning, right? So explaining this code would be like -3 colon would be like it is from the last digits, 3 digits from the back. Or at the same time, if we are slicing from 3, right, it will slide from third digit, which is 0, 1, 2. So from third onwards, everything thereafter. Okay, so these are the slicing options here for us to handle, right? Then apart from that, right, in case if we have to use only the colon, right, we print all the values here, right? So which means slicing means it doesn't uh, it brings all the values here. Okay, so this slicing makes a copy of a new values. Okay, so at the same time, if you want to add a values, the rest of the values, make it okay. So the rest of the values means you can add it, right? For example, in addition to the usually added group here, you can add the remaining values, and which is known as a concatenation, right? Which is if you use Excel, it's a common thing here, right? And at the same time, this will directly print it continuously, or otherwise you can add these values to a new value, I mean new list. So my new list, let's say, and you can add it like here. So which means it won't print any new value, so we have to give a print statement. So this will create a new list concluding everything, right? So either you can print it like for a single use, or for a repeated use, you can insert it to a new variable and print it and keep it. You can save it as well. Okay, so this is usual basic operator, right? But right, so here we need to see one important thing is, unlike strings, right, which is immutable, right? Immutable means you cannot change a value, right? Once you add a string value, which cannot be changed later, right? For example, uh, variable r is equal to, let's say, x spam. You cannot change a single letter here, right? You can bring the values, right? You can reuse the value, right, by using a index r0, sorry, r3, right? So you get this value. You can call this and use it, but you cannot change any numbers here, right? So which is immutable. At the same time, right, unlike strings, list operations are mutable operations. So which means you cannot change it here, right? For example, if you have a three value, we can change these values later on, right? So for example, we see this operations here, okay? So let's see this value. Cubes 1, 8, 27, 65, and 125. So which means the cube values 1 to the power of 3, 2 to the power of 3, and 3 to the power of 3. So likewise. So let's say I create this value and checking these values again, I notice, okay, this value is wrong. Why? Because 3 to the power of 3 is 27, but 4 to the power of 4 is 64, but not 65. Okay, so let's say I have to change this value, so I have to remove this value and add a new value. So in this case, right, which is, yeah, uh, so example, for example, 4 to the power, I mean, in case if you don't understand, right, so it is 64, not 65. Okay, because other values are 5 to the power of 5 is correct, right? 3 to the power of 3 is also correct. 27, uh, sorry, wrong. 5 to the power of, not 5, 3. Okay, 5 to the power of 3 is 125, and 3 to the power of 3 is 27. So this is correct and this is correct, and we have to change this 65 into 64, right? So this 64, right, how do we change this 64, right? All we have to do is we need to know the index of this value, which is first position is 0, second, third, and sorry, third position here. Okay, so this is 0, 1, 2, and 3, right? So let's say cube 3 is 64. So which means currently when I print cubes, this is 65, so which is fourth one. And again, if I check it again, it becomes 64, right? Which is I have changed this, right? Instead of instead of deleting the whole list and correcting it, I can correct our insert a value there. Okay, so at the same time, there are other functions for this as well, right? So for example, append function and insert a function, right? So inserting a function um, here, sorry, actually these are um, modes modifiers later on for this particular list function. Append is not a function, append is a list functions modifier. So this, let's say to modify, use a modifier, let's say after 25. Okay, so which is in this cube list, this is 5, right? So let's say 5 to the power, I mean, sorry, 5, not 5, 6. Cube, the value is 216. Okay, so which is 216 value. So let's say I have to add this value after this. Okay, yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the name of the in list, which is cubes, and apart from that, I have to use a period, which is a full stop, and append. This is a modifier. So in this append and use the 216. So which means if I give a different list name, I will get an error here. Okay. Okay, so if I use a different name, I'll get an error because cube is not defined, right? Why? Because the list name is wrong, right? So which is cubes. Okay, so you have to be careful. So these are the list name. So now when I print the cubes, right, the last value I have added 216 is there, right? So what this dot append do is, right, it will add this value, whatever the value I'm going to give will be added to the end of this. Okay, So which means it will be added to the last. So at the same time, there is an insert function, a specific insert function, which is similar to this statement, right? Within square bracket, if you just place it, so using this similar to this statement, there is an insert, right? And which is useful in the long-term programming, right? In Python, usually most common is insert modifiers, right? Why? Because we need to use it. So what does this do, right? In between the second position, so this is a indexing of this, right? 2, right? So this area will be, the value of this will be inserted. Okay. So for example, now if you see this one, the 55 have been placed here, inserted at the third position, right? Which is 2 means this is 0, 1, 2. Give me a second. Okay, so there are questions regarding the list operations. I'll answer them at the end of this. Okay. Then, what? So let's in the same list operations, right? We'll see how these usual strings in a list. Okay. So let's say if you want to reuse this for a second. So let's say we'll have a separate new list called letters. So there are continuous A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? In this, let's say, check whether this has been inserted. Yes, correctly, it has been inserted. Okay. So now we are going to do is, what we are going to do is, instead of changing a particular, uh, instead of replacing a particular value at a particular position, we will select a range of positions and replacing a range of positions. So which is very important in data manipulation, right? So why? Because instead of changing a single value, right, we'll choose a range 2 to 5 and replacing the values continuously this, right? Okay. So particular list name and the range and the values assigning to this. Okay. So what happens is when you get a new range, right? A and B is same, right? From the 2, which is the third position here, from the 2 to 5, which is 2, 3, 4, 5. So the new uh, E. So C and D and E are, have been replaced in a capital words. Okay. So this is replacing a particular range, right? At the same time, let's say if you want to, if this is a mistake and we want to remove this particular range. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to give a particular range an empty form, right? So just emptying the spaces. Letters 2 colon 5, which is a particular range of a list, and emptying. So which means you will be getting a this particular CDE at 2 to 5 will be removed, right? But by mistake, if you have done, right, a complete one within, if you forgot to give a particular range, what happens is, right, you will get an empty list, right? So the list will be erased and there won't be any questions, right? The whether you want to remove this or not, right? So that's one important thing when you are a root or a admin on a particular program, right? And if you remove it, it will be removed forever and it's very hard to get it back. So you have to be careful when functioning with this kind of a system, right? Then at the same time, let's coming back to a particular function, right? How to count this? I think last class also I have done this for a particular string, right? So instead of a string, the list also this will work, right? And it will count totally how many indexes are here, right? You can use this one for cubes, which we have done in the early stages, and squares as well, right? Yeah, squares or square. squares. Okay, squares, you can see how many numbers, I mean how many values in a particular list. So this seems very simple here, right? All of list operations, and you can try it on your own once or twice. So then once you get your hands-on experience, you have to do this repeatedly and get until you get the hands-on things. Okay, so let's do some little more work, right? So for example, we add two lists here. So this is list A, and at the same time, if you have a list N, right? So let's say you have a two different type of list, and the list one has a strings, list two have integers, and let's say we'll create a new list, right? Merging this and this. Okay. Is this operation, right? We have performed a previous similar operation here. Okay, this, right? So in this operation, if you think this is similar to this operation, definitely no, right? It's similar but not the exactly same operation, right? Why? Because once I print the x, you will see, right, there are two different sets here, right? And the list has been placed one the other, but as a complete list, right? So if you want to retrieve this information here right now, right? So all you have to do is you need to give 0, right? And you will get the complete list here, right? So if you want to call a particular value out of this, it will be like 0, and again you need to calculate for a different value here, right? At the same time, if you want a different values to the 2, you need to get this 3 value, right? So from the value 3 here, you need to operate it separately. Okay, so these are very simple operations for beginners. So then again, we'll go for input. Um, so in Python, there are input functions, right? So for example, we can give an age, a new variable, and integer is int is for integers, right? Without integer, you can use this like this, right? Right. So this is also, this works, right? So automatically when you say age is equivalent to input, so automatically you can give a value 15, right? And then when you print the value, so automatically the value will be here. So but the problem here is when you give a value here, it will be a string, not, you cannot calculate it here. So because of that, we convert this as an integer and place it to the age, right? Then again, if you give a value here, age again, it will be a 55. Okay, so this is the advantage of getting a data from the user's point, right? So instead of a single programming, I mean, automatically running a programming, you can take values from the user who uses the program once you create your program, and then you can take the intake and then so this is how we insert function from users. Okay, similar to this, you can run name also. So let's say name is equal to input, and it will give, I mean, you won't see this 3 uh, greater than signs here immediately after this one, after enter. Why? Because which Python program is still running here, and it is expecting a answer from it, right? So let's say Peter. Okay, so name equal to input. So you have given an input. Then, so let's say we run a code, right? A print, a name is the variable which we have got recently updated. Age we have updated here, and there is an additional print command. I mean, just the statement is, right? So once you print this one, this will be processed. Is okay. So if you want to make this more visible, you add a space here. Okay, so Peter is 55. Okay, so here this additional space is formatting so that you can do it later on, right? So why this additional space is right here instead of giving an extra space. Okay, so these are very basic stuffs in comes when it comes to input. Okay, and I'm sorry, I'm rushing a lot, right? Why? Because we are handling too many different type of students, because some students are really advanced students and they, I mean, it's boring for them. I understand, I know. At the same time, we have very basic students as well, so we need to cater them as well, because that we have started this. So we will start the basics once, and then once the students get hands on, we'll go for that. Okay, so now we are in the conditional clauses. Okay, so let's say, right, so it's a very simple conditional clause, right? So for example, in we assign a variable here, q is equivalent to 4, right? After that, we will have an if and else command, right? So in this case, right, there will be two ways, right? So at this point, if the q, right, based on the just I have to change it to q. So based on this value, the number can be changed later on, right? For example, if the q is 4, you will get an answer, and if the q is not 4, you will get an answer, right? So like that. Okay. So let's copy and paste it. Or what you can do is you can, right, instead of copy and pasting the code here, right? So here you can do a much better version is you can create a file, new file here, a new Python file, and create it here. So you can have a very basic command, right? Instead of q, you can have your own code as well, right? So let's save this first of all. Mm, okay. So if else, just saving. Okay. So once I save this one, so it will be running. I mean, I have to save every time before I run. So let's say I run this module and see. Okay. So you get an answer, no. Yeah, it's not necessary. Okay. So let's run it again. It's the same thing. Okay, no. Why? Because the answer q is equal to 4, and if q equal sign. So let me explain the code line by line. So here we are assigning a value 4 into q, right? After that, the if conditional command starts. So if you might notice that the word if has been underlined, I mean colored in orange, and there is a space required, and the variable name q, right? And now we need an equal sign, right? Not a single equal, right? It's a double equal sign, right? Why this double equal signs, right? This represents whether this 5, right? I mean this variable q is exactly equivalent to 5, number 5, right? So which means it's like a question. You can ask Python in the normal versions as well. 5 equal 5, right? It's true. 5 equal to 6. So that's a false, right? So this was one of the question in our previous practice quiz as well. And this is not equivalent to 4, which is true. And 5 is not equivalent to 5, which is false, right? So this is absolutely equal, and this is not equal, right? In a conditional clauses. Okay, so here when we mean double equal and 5, right, which means if it is equal, right? So that's a if clause, it's a condition, and every condition ends with a colon here. And you might notice a tab space, right? A tab space means when you press the tab, so this is a tab space. If you don't have this tab space, this function doesn't work, right? Which is very important, right? So we call this as a indentation. Okay, so if this indent is not there, the condition even if the condition is correct, this print command won't work, right? Or even if you put a um, number sign, right, or hash, this will be commented and it won't work, right? So you need to have this one. So this intent is very important in Python. Okay, and again you will have an else statement, right? And else means whatever, if the condition is not fulfilled, you will, this will be leading, right? So this will be printed. So here, if the condition is correct, this will be better. So let's say we place it 5, save and run it again, right? So you run it and yes, right? So why? Because if q is equal to 5, press yes, q is equal to 5, so you, this command will be expressed. If the command is not there, right, if you run it again, okay, will be no, right? Why? Because this statement is false, right? So this is not equivalent to q is not equivalent to 5. So if it is not there, else command will be printing a no here. Okay, so this is very simple in terms of this, right? So let's check a little more advanced here, right? Similar to if and else, right? There is an elif, right? So let's say if you have to keep on writing if and else commands, right, continuously. If else, right? So instead of running a yeah, for example, if you want to run several if commands, right? So if it is if and else, again you can type an if, right? If q is equal to 6, okay, then you need to have a print command again, right? Yes, it is 6, okay. Then you need to go for an else, right? Then again, if you have to type if q is, right, if it is not equally 7, okay. So you can't keep on typing it like this, okay. So instead of this, right, instead of this else and if, right, so you can continuously go on and type like this, if else like that. So instead of doing that, right, else and if, you can merge and type it in a single straight line, so like that, else if, right? So this is else if command, we call it elif, okay. So let's say paste it, elif number is equal to 3, if number is equal 1, right, then print 1, if it is 2, print 2, if, or otherwise we'll say print something else. So let's say this is something else and run the module and something else, right? Why? Because the number is 3. So let's say make it 2, save and run, and it says 2, right? Why? Because it's equivalent to 2. So which, this condition is not fulfilled, so it has moved to else if again. So this is yes, so this has been printed and this is not executed. Okay, so this is the simple idea behind it, if else conditional clauses. Okay, over, okay, conditional clauses. Okay, so this is, I hope you have understood this. So let me go for a loops, right? So there are loops functions is necessary for continuously getting data and continuously checking the numbers, right? And so this is one of the loop function here, known as a while loop. Okay, okay. So this loop function, right? What loop function is going to do is, so let's say p is equal to 0 in the beginning, right? And the statement like if else, it has always two uh, outputs. I mean, two or more than two outputs, right? But every if line or else, if or else, if there will be two different change of um, uh, execution, right? But while function is something different, right? It will keep on running it until it reaches a particular level, right? So for example, let's say we assign a variable and the variable assigned variable, when the assigned variable is less than 10, right, unless the p is less than 10, right, the function will continuously run, okay. And here again you need to notice, right, until this while statement, right, the other statements that comes with the while, you need to indent it, right, one space, oh sorry, one tab indent, right. So this is one indent, one tab indent. Okay, if you move this code to here, this is no longer in the while loop, right. This will be printing after that, right. For example, just to show you all, print that. Okay, so if you do this one, and let's say I'm running the while statement, running the module, so every time there is a zero print after printing done, done, done. So what happens is this print should be here in this end, right? So then once the statement is over, you can get the print only once. Otherwise, it will print this done every time it functions. Okay, so let's save this and run it again, and you will notice, okay, this is continuously running. So which means, what does this means, right? Until initially in the beginning of the start, p is equal to 0, which means the variable p is assigned value 0. And so first time when the while loop runs, right, that's has a, you have to notice this colon sign as well. So first time when the p value is less than 0, which is in the beginning 0, so it is going to print the 0 value p. So when it is going to print the variable, so that is 0. But second time, let's say this is commented and not necessary, so we don't have this one. So let's say this both are same, right? You can run one of this, not both, right? So what does this p plus equal 1 means, right? Actually, what we are trying to do is p is equivalent to the same value plus 1, right? So which means, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a value t is equivalent to 5, right? And let's say t plus, I mean, now t is equivalent to, again, t plus, sorry, 3. Then again, now if you print t, right, or let's say just say t, now 8, right, 5 plus 3, 8. So this is what we are doing it here, right? So p is equivalent to p plus 1. So which means every time this loop process, the one number will be added. So after this line, right, p will be 1. So again, still 1 is less than 10. So this will be printed. Then again, 1 will be added with another one. So 2, but still 2 is less than 10. So until it reaches 9, and it will be added 1. And after that, it will be 10. Okay. So 10 is not less than 10. So the while loop exits. So until that, this will continuously printing. Okay, so continuously this program executed, right? So this is very uh, childish way to type a code, right? So I prefer this, so you can use this. I mean, this both these codes are similar. Plus equal 1 is similar to p is equal to p plus 1, right? Hope you understand this code as well. Okay, then again, instead of while loop, right, there are additional one code. So I'm sharing this code as well, right? So this will also make a similar function, right? And this function is similar. I mean, if you don't understand this, in Python, it's very easy to swap variables. For example, a comma b equivalent to 10, sorry, yeah, 5 and 8. Okay, then you can print a is 5 and b is 10, right? And automatically you can swap this also, right? A, now again, if you want to change this one, a comma b is equal to b comma a, right? And now if you print a is 8 and b is 5, okay? So which is code, I mean, the variable swap is very simple in Python, right? If you understand, so which is very important. And here is what we are doing it, but instead of a comma b equal to b comma a plus b, so which performs the similar functions here. So we'll go for the range function, which is a for loop using a range, right? So range, before you start the range functions here, For example, let's say range 10, just 10, 10. Okay. So range 0 to 10. So the range function 0 to 10. Okay. Sorry, 5 to 10. What happens? Yeah. So in this range functions, right, what we are going to do is we will be using a particular range function instead of while loop, right, by giving a condition, right? Okay. Like if and a statement also a condition, or while loop also have a condition. So instead of that, we are using a range statement here, right? And this will be printing a particular value, right? For example, I, right, in this range 5. So this will, until this will is going to print this statement. Okay. You can declare the I in the beginning, or otherwise, let's see how it's going to work. Okay. So if you don't say I is a particular value, then it will print it, or otherwise it will have some errors here as well, right? So in this particular range function, right, range is 5 means uh, it's continuously it is going to print the range, right? For every particular value in the range, it is going to print, right? So this is instead of while loop assigning a variable, you can function it. I mean, this will work for even a string function, right? Similar to this. Okay. So let's say what happens in this code, right? You have a list name A, and the list have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, right? And for every word, right, in this number, you are adding and printing it in a different list, right? So which is 0, right? So every I in a range, right? So this is len a means total numbers, right? And then you are printing I for every I and printing it a number, right? So every time this continues, this will have a name here, right? Or you can have this value and you can add it, or add a value again, right? Or maybe add a additional value if you want, or otherwise you can just print it as it is. Okay. So what happens is you are printing an I, which is the value here and the number. Okay. Then if you want to create a new list using a range command, right? So this range, you can use it at a several point here. Right? So for example, if you want to create a new list, okay. So for example, if you create a list using a range, right? The range 5, usually you will get 0 to 5, until 5, and except 5 you will be getting a print. If you want to pass this values to a particular new list, you can assign a new variable, new list, just, and list range command, and automatically you will get the new list, new variable. All these values will be assigned to a particular variable here. Okay. Okay. So at the same time, yeah. So before having a number, okay. Okay. So now we'll get back to. So I have rushed a lot, right? Why? Because these are very basics that you can try on your own as well, right? But if you want, you can session it also. Okay, so let's ask any questions before we start the functions here. Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry for the delay. There were some just pasting some Viber or WhatsApp or other groups link, right? So we are trying to disable the chat, but please do not click any links here, because we'll just try to remove them. Okay, so let's start this again. Uh, okay, so now we are going to define, I mean, how to do the functions here. So in this functions, okay, so let's say here, the similar to whatever we have done in this range command, right? We will convert this into a function, a simple function here. So for example, if I have to convert this into a function, okay, well, let's say a simple function, for example, define. So let's use a basic name. Sorry, Python is let's say Mary, right? And print. Okay, so let's say this. Okay, so let's save this and run here. Okay, so this has been run, and you will not get any printing values here. So why? Because this is a very simple function with a just a hi, right? And once you execute this, the function has been there, right? But you don't get a printing command, right? Why? Because this has not been called, right? So to execute the function, you need to call this function, right? So to call a function, right, all you have to do is you have to use this code to call this, right? So which is Mary, right? And once you call this function, this will be executed, right? Whatever the commands that has been waiting, right? You can use this one. So this is easy, right? To reuse the code, right? So several times. For example, this is a simple code, so every time you can multiple times, right? So in advance, if you want to see a little further one, right? All you can do is the similar to whatever we have done here. This was a function before, right? We have tested, right? We can add this one instead of the existing one here. Okay, but all we have to do is we need to do an intention here, right? Because previously we have added this, right? So in this one we need an intent again, right? And again here. Okay, so let's save this. This is for loop. So let's say I'll take FL test, for loop test. Okay, so let's say save this and run. Okay, so this has been ran, but it won't print until you call this function. So to call this function, you need to do this. Okay, so now I can several times I can call this function, right? And do this one multiple times, right? As many times as I want, I can use this, right? And this way, it's very easy for us to reuse the code, right? Give me a second, I have a message. Yeah, there are some participants, I have enabled the chat box previously. There are some participants are keep on messaging on Viber links. I would like master or the other people, please refrain from pasting any links here, and don't click any WhatsApp or Viber links that has been pasted here, right? In case if you have joined, please remove yourself from this link. These are some students are spamming, it seems, right? Yeah, I'm sorry for this technical issues. Okay, now let's say this is one advantage of this, but instead of this, we can have a complex um, functions as well, right? For example, we'll have a very multiplication function. Okay, function. Okay, I'll have to explain the function first. So in this defining a function, so def, you have to only do this once, and after that, the function name, right? And you need to add a colon here, and all of the functions has to be typed in it with an indent. And later on, right, when you recall this function, you don't have to say def space or any colon here. You can just type referral test, okay, and call it, right? So let's look at the different function here. Okay, here I don't even have to mention this values here. This can be in the function, or we will remove this function also. We can just have a very simple function like this. Okay, different function multiply, and I have added a value, right, x comma y, right? And what happens is the values will be multiplied, so the return will be returned into x into y, right? So whatever the values I have added, it will be multiplied. Okay, so all I have to do is, right, instead of running this function, okay, I can do this a comma a is equal to b. Uh, this is 6. Let's see. So let's say a is equal to 6, b is equal to 7, right? And then I have to call this function. So function is multiply, right? So instead of multiplying this function, we can say operation, right, equal to multiply. Okay. So let's say this variable, sorry. Okay. Uh, yeah. Okay. I have to run this function again. Okay. So this function has been run. A is equal to 6. B is equal to 7. So it's a general number. Operation is equal to, right? Oops. Let me copy paste. This is simple. Okay, so now when I copy paste this, yeah, so which means now I have started a function, which is the function is very simple, right? Whatever the values I have given, it will multiply and execute. Okay, so here I have given the function into basic value variable name as operation. Now I have to call, I'm calling an operation value, right? And a and b, which is whatever, instead of x and y, I have given two values, and each values already they have an assigned one, right? Automatically the multiply function has multiplied. This becomes handy, right, when it comes to do a very large number of list operations, right? Imagine this has a very large list in a, and b is also another list, and if you want to do a matrix kind of a multiplication or any additional mathematical operations, this, or whether it is adding or taking any values, you can use this kind of a function. So this is very important when it comes to this. This is very important here. Yeah, is it a, yeah, so this is very important in case if you want to repeat the functions and all. Okay, is it possible to hear, right? Audible. Yeah, audible. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. Then let's go through the questions here again. Okay, so because we have some technicals and other issues, I will be closing the session right early today, right? So we'll stop with this and we'll go for a question and answer right now. Okay, so if you have any questions, I'll be sharing this session too in our main page, right? So inaugural sessions will be shared. You can access your session one practice quiz link here, right? So practice quiz link will be here. You can click and get it, or otherwise the learning materials what we have done, I have updated here. The session one recording is also there. Session two, I will be uploading it today itself. With the practice quiz will be uploaded by Sunday. Okay, and in case if you have any questions, you can verify, as well as with this session. Next, by Monday, we will be uploading an additional recorded session for basic technical operators, right? So additional functions, right? And by Wednesday, we can have, I mean, next week we can have one live session and two normal sessions as well. I mean, recorded session as well. So for you to go back and practice. Okay, so let's answer the questions, right? So if you have any questions, yeah, can answer a lot of questions. Oh, okay. So I'm getting a lot of questions today. So, okay, wait a second. Okay, what is the special use of append other than the normal function? Yes. Uh, okay. Uh, okay, wait a second, guys. Okay, there are a lot of quizzes. So what I will do is I will just save the questions right now, and we will upload a FAQ here because there are around over 100, 200 quizzes. I can stop here one by one and answer the questions because there are continuously many quizzes have been asked. Okay, so what I will do is I will answer your questions in a FAQ and share a Word document online, and you can go back to the quiz questions you have asked. Okay, so I hope that would be easier for day one. Okay, um, there are a lot of questions regarding Python and ethical hacking. Uh, yeah, so we'll discuss ethical hacking later on. I mean, you need a lot of tools, not only Python for that. So you can't uh, do ethical hacking only with Python. I mean, there are a lot of other tools necessary. So we don't discuss that right here. Okay, resharing the web page. So what I will do is I will reshare the website links here. Right. Okay, so okay then. So I'm really sorry for there are several technical glitches today, as well as some messages. I mean, the WhatsApp and Viber, Telegram messages to join the group. So that's the other issue. So do not click those links. So thank you so much. Be on. Please check our website frequently, and you will be getting all these additional materials and recorded sessions as well for session 2. And we'll be having uploading an additional recorded session on Monday. So prior to the class, you can do the you can check the recorded session and join the program as well. Thank you so much.